Algebra class, let's go ahead and start with your first homework assignment 1.1. I'm doing all the odd ones. We're going to start with the simple stuff here. It says solve the equation, justify each step, and check your solution. Number one says x plus 5 equals 8. This is pretty standard. Probably learned this somewhere in second grade, right? So if we write this out, we realize we want to isolate our variable. That means I need to get all of the like terms mixed together. I see 5 and 8 are like terms because they're both numbers. So I need to get 5 to the opposite side of 8, or the opposite side of the equal sign, excuse me. So we're going to subtract 5 from this side to get rid of it. Whatever I subtract from one side, I subtract from the other. We're balancing everything out. That's why we call this an equation. Everything has to be done equally. The x comes down because we didn't get rid of it at all. 5 minus 5 is 0. We're not going to bring that down because anything plus 0 is itself. And 8 minus 5 is 3, and that means x equals 3. All right, we're going to work the rest of these pretty quick here. Number 3 says y minus 4 equals 3. We're going to do just the opposite of what we did before. Since we have a negative 4, we're going to add 4 to it. And whatever I add to one side, I add to the other. This tells me the y will come down, and y is going to equal 3 plus 4, which is 7. All right, let's go to the next one, number 5. W plus 3 equals negative 4. Again, to get w by itself, I isolate it by giving the inverse operation. The opposite of positive 3 is negative 3. Whatever I do to one side, I do to the other. That gives me negative 3 plus negative 4, and that's going to give me a negative 7. All right, we're working down to number 7. This time they're giving us decimals. 5.2 equals a minus 0.4. I still need to get a by itself, so the opposite of negative 4 will be, or negative 0.4 will be positive 0.4. That gives me a over here, and whatever I add to one side, of course, I add to the other. Well, 5.2 plus 0.4 is going to give me 5.6. All right, number 9 says we got 3 over 2 plus t equals 1/2. I got to get t by itself, so I'm going to subtract 3 over 2. Whatever I do to one side, I do to the other, so I'll be subtracting 3 over 2 from this side. Now we got positive 1/2 minus 3 over 2. This is nicely put together because my denominators are the same, which means all I have to do is combine my numerators. I got a negative 3 and a 1. That's going to give me a negative 2. So now I have negative 2 over 2, and that's going to equal t. Now remember, every fraction is really a division problem. So negative 2 divided by 2 is actually negative 1, because 2 divided by 2 is 1, and a negative divided by a positive is a negative. So t is going to equal negative 1. All right, that was the answers to 1 through 10 odd numbers. That means you guys have 2 through 10 to do. We're going to go ahead and work number 11 now. So the amusement park officer, offers a ticket for $12.95 off the original price. Write and solve an equation to find the original price. Now, it says write and solve the equation to find the original price. The key word here is original price. Look over here in the flyer. It says discount price is $44. So this tells me that the original or the discount price is $44. Okay, and that's going to equal that original price, which was P, the price, minus $12.95. Because remember, that's what the offer, right? The amusement park offers a ticket for $12.95 off. So we're taking that off the original price. So we have the equation 44 equals P minus 12.95. To get P by itself, we need to isolate that variable. We're going to find the opposite of negative 12.95, which is positive 12.95. All right, that's the only thing that's going to get rid of it. Of course, whatever I do to one side of the equal sign, remember the rule is I have to do the same to the other side. So remember, we're adding $12.95 here. So now I have to take $44 and add it to $12.95. Well, that's going to give us a total of $56.95. Okay, so that must be the original price. All right, that was number 11, which means you have number 12 to do. Let's look at number 13. It says solve the equation, justify each step, check your work. We got 5g equals 20. Well, we know that 5g equals 20 means we're going to isolate g, the variable. 5 is being multiplied to g. You need to do the opposite to get it away from it. The opposite of multiplication is division. So we're going to divide 5g by 5. Whatever I do to one side, I do the other. So now I have to take 20 and divide it by 5, and that equals 4. So g has to equal 4. All right, let's work through the rest of these quickly and see if we can make a quick night of this. So p divided by 5 equals 3. That means I'm going to multiply by 5 to get rid of dividing by 5, right? We do the opposite, which means we'll take 3 and multiply it by 5, and that's going to give us p equals 3 times 5, that's 15. All right, next one says negative 54 equals 9s. To get 9 away from s, I'm going to divide it by 9. Whatever I divide from one side, I do the other, and that's 54 divided by 9. And 54 divided by 9, I believe, is going to be 6. So since it's negative 54 divided by 9, that's going to be negative 6. That's going to equal s. Next, we've got negative x over 6 equals 1.4. We're going to have to get x and isolate it. Since we're dividing x by x by negative 6, we're going to have to multiply it by negative 6 to get rid of it. So I'm going to do the work over here because it's going to require a little more space. If I have negative x over 6 equals 1.4, we're going to multiply this side to negative 6. And that's going to go ahead and, that gives us x by itself. And whatever I multiply to one side, I do the other. So I'm going to multiply 1.4 times negative 6. All right, I'll make short work of this using a calculator. And 1.4 times negative 6, 1.4 times 6 is 8.4, so that's going to be negative 8.4. All right, 21 is negative 108 pi equals 9 pi r. We're trying to get r by itself, so I'm going to divide 9 pi r by 9 pi. That'll give us r by itself. Whatever I multiply to one side, I multiply to the other side. So that means I'm going to have to divide, right? Whatever I divide from one side, I also divide from the other. So I'm going to divide negative 108 pi by 9 pi. Well, pi divided by pi gives us nothing. That's 1. So now we just have to take 108 and divide it by 9. All right, if I take 108 and divide it by 9, that gives me 12. So negative 108 divided by positive 9 will give us negative 12. All right, your job is to get 14, 16, 18, and 22 done, or 20 and 22 done. And we're going to be moving on to 23 through 31. All right, for 23 through 32, it says solve the equation, check your solution. Number 23 says negative 14 equals p minus 11. Well, we got to isolate p, so we're going to add 11 to both sides. When I add 11 to this side, I got negative 14 plus 11, that's going to give me negative 3. So we have negative 3 equals p. Next, I've got negative 8r equals 64. I got to isolate r, so since I'm multiplying by negative 8, I'm going to divide by negative 8. Whatever I divide from one side and do the other side, and 64 divided by negative 8 will give me negative 8. So r is going to equal negative 8. Remember, a negative times a negative equals a positive. Next, we got 3 over 7m equals 6. I'm going to do that work over here since I'll need a little more room. 3 over 7m equals 6. To get m by itself, I'm going to have to multiply it by the inverse, which is 7 over 3. Whatever I do to one side, I do to the other side, which means I'm going to take 6 and multiply it by 7 and then divide it by 3. Or I could remember that this is just the same as 6 over 1. That goes ahead and allows me to take 6 and 3, since they both have 3 in it. I can take 3 and divide it by 3, and that gives me 1. 6 divided by 3 is 2. And now I just have 2 times 7, which is 14. So m equals 14. All right, next is number 29. They're just trying to put some decimals in here to see if you know what to do with them. Since d is being divided by 1.5, to get rid of 1.5, I'll have to multiply it by 1.5. Again, whatever I do to one side, I'll do to the other. So I'm simply taking negative 3.8 and multiplying it to 1.5. All right, we'll use our calculator, just get through that pretty quick here. And if I have 1.5 and I multiply it to negative 3.8, that's going to give me a negative 5.7. And that is what d equals. Number 31 says I got f plus 3 pi equals 7 pi. This is nothing but making sure you remember that you have to use combine common denominators. These both have pi in it, and even if they were r or x or even a star, they are common denominators because they both end in pi. So I can simply subtract 3 pi from this side, and that allows me to subtract 3 pi from this side. And now that tells me that f is going to equal 7 minus 3, which is 4 pi. All right, going to number 33, it says, describe and correct the error in solving. This equation says negative 0.8 plus r equals 12.6. They decided they were going to subtract negative 0.8 from both sides, and that's not what we do. If I have a negative 0.8 on one side, and I'm adding it to r, and it equals 12.6, that tells me I'm going to have to add 0.8 to get rid of it, which means I'll add 0.8 to the other side. That is how equality works. R comes down, and 12.6 plus 0.8 is going to give us 13.4. And that's what they did wrong. All right, let's go to number 30. Well, you have number 34 to do. I'm going to do number 35 here. It says the sum of the angle measures of a quadrilateral is 360 degrees. That means all of these sums for these angles have to equal 360. It says write and solve an equation to find the value of x. We want to know what x is. Use a protractor to check the reasonableness of your answer. We don't really need to check the reasonableness because remember, it told us everything equals 360. So really, this is 100, because that's what that one angle is, added to 120. That's the other angle. And then we're going to add that to 100 again. That's the other angle. And then we have to add that to x. And all that has to equal 360. Now we can add our like terms. 100 plus 100 is 200. 200 plus 120 is 320. So now we combine our like terms, and it's 320 plus x is going to equal 360. To isolate x, I need to get rid of this number, combine it with the like term on the opposite side, which means I need the opposite of 320, which is negative 320. Whatever I subtract from one side, I subtract from the other. And now we have x is equal to 40, because 360 minus 320 is 40. So x must equal 40 degrees. All right, number 37 is next. It says a baker orders 162 eggs. Each carton contains 18 eggs. which equation can you use to find the number X of cartons? Explain. Well, if there's 162 eggs and each egg contains 18, or each carton contains 18 eggs, we could take 162 and divide it by 18 to give us our answer. So if we're looking at these, A says 162 times X will equal 18. That's not going to work, because when I divide 162 away, I'd have to divide 18 by 162. That doesn't work. On B, have X over 18, which means I'd have to multiply that by 18 to get rid of it, which means I'd have to multiply 162 by 18. That's not going to work. On C, I have 18x equals 162. I would have to divide 18x by 18 to isolate x, which means I would divide 162 by 18, and that's exactly what we said we need to do. So C is going to be our correct answer here. All right, and the other one says x plus 18 equals 162. That won't work, because all that's going to do is make me subtract 18 from both sides, and that's not what I want to do. I want to go ahead and tell me the number of cartons, which means I need to divide. So 162 divided by 18, 162 divided by 18, that's going to give us 9. So that tells us we'll need 9 cartons. Okay, the last one that I'm doing for you tonight, because you have number 38 to do. I got number 39, you have 40. Number 39 says, write and solve an equation to answer your question. Swimmer wins a 50-yard freestyle with time of 24.76 seconds. Find the swimmer's average speed to the nearest hundredth of a yard per second. All right, so we're going to set up this equation saying that the distance equals the average speed times time. And see, the distance we said, the swimmer wins a 50-yard freestyle race, so that's going to be 50. And then we have the speed, they're wanting the speed, so that's going to remain the same, S. And then the time is 24.76. So that means I can really rewrite this and put 24.76 times S. Now to get S by itself, I have to do the opposite of the operations. Right now this is multiplication, so I'm going to divide 24.76 from 24.76x. Whatever I do to one side, I do the other. So I'm going to have to divide 50 by 24.76, and that's going to give me my answer. Let's see here. If I take 50 and divide it by 24.76, that's going to give me, looks like a 2.019. I said to the nearest hundredth. Hundredth is here at this. So since this is bigger than 5, this is going to be 2.02. Well, this was in seconds, right? So seconds. Or yards per second. Yards per second. Because we're talking about speed. All right, so yards per second. All right, the rest of them are for you to do. I'll see you in class with great homework. Have a great night. See you tomorrow.